Hi, everyone. While I'm setting up, I actually wanted to ask you. So, thank you, JJ, for the introduction. I haven't slept much yesterday night, and it's unfortunately not because of the wild Amsterdam nights. But I was glued on my phone just following the news of what's happening in the Middle East. And I was not alone, I was with some of you. And we were discussing, and yesterday night I was thinking, I'm not really feeling talking about privacy tech law right now. It's kind of was very dissonant at that point. And then this morning I was like, you know what, business as usual. We don't know really what's happening. And there's so much we can know and do right now. So I was still gonna talk to you about Swiss banking secrecy and privacy. But this morning when I got to the venue, some of the people with whom I was yesterday, I haven't tried yet. Some of the people I was with yesterday were like, no, we should talk about something else and use this opportunity to, just explore other topics. And because it's so early and we're lucky that so many of you are here, I was gonna ask you what you prefer. So do you still wanna hear about Swiss banking secrecy and how it got eroded over time because of US pressures related to tax evasion? It sounds kind of very interesting to me. I don't know if I sold it well. Or do you want to just have a more inclusive, open floor where we discuss still about very relevant topic of what is law and what is regulation and what are we complying with? And it's going to be mainly, if we decide to do this, mainly open questions with no answers. But I think this is very interesting to see also what questions are other people's head. And so I don't know if you want to have a show of hands, maybe for banking secrecy. Whoa, nice. I didn't have time to count, but I'm impressed, thank you. And for the other topic, open floor discussion about law. Well, I'm gonna bridge both, but banking secrecy wins, which is great since this is being set up. Don't dox my Telegram. Don't dox. Close your eyes. It's only over there. Okay, great. Oof. Well, let me just. I can't just make it full screen, close everything else.
It was not properly connected.
So there's weed crumbs in my port, in the laptop port.
Maybe that was it.
Okay, well, I can still start, and then we catch up with the slides. The first slides are anyway not that interesting. So my name is Fatemeh Fannizadeh. I'm a Swiss qualified lawyer. Please, JJ, tell me about the time, because I totally lost track of. Okay, thank you. So I used to work in big law firms doing white-collar criminal defense, just big dispute resolutions. And this talk is obviously not legal advice. There's a slide about it. It's more about just general thoughts about the space and drawing parallels, as I told you before, with what has happened in the Swiss banking sector. So I became a lawyer, and very early on, I decided to become freelance and open my own law firm and give advice to my own clients. And at that point, I went to the banks and asked them to open a professional bank account for me. And I had very good relationships with these banks for all my life in Switzerland. And when I went there, they refused. And they refused to tell me that they refused. So I've literally been ghosted by these banks. And I was really upset and be like, why aren't you opening a bank account for me? And finally, I eventually found out that my last name flagged in their system because it's Iranian. And it was right before Trump got elected as president. And somehow they had increased scrutiny and the banks had decided to exclude, I'm seeing my own screen, to exclude all Iranians without like doing any form of like personal assessment of like the risk of every individual. They were like, anyone with an Iranian sounding name, anyone with an attachment with Iran, we don't want their business. And they did that not to comply with Swiss law. What they did was actually not legal in Switzerland. They just discriminated me based on my name. What they did was to eventually comply perhaps with US policies and regulations. And when I realized this, I got really mad. I thought that Switzerland is literally colonized through its banks by the US. Like, why are private entities in Switzerland, far from the US, have to just change their business model in order to comply with some form of future hypothetical risks, and then people who are legitimately in Switzerland doing business, working, living there, impacted by this like potential future US politics. And that's where I looked for alternative financial systems, and this is like my origin story into Bitcoin and crypto. And I was like, this is great, like crypto is this peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It provides this alternative. It's censorship resistant, permissionless, decentralized, cypherpunk. I totally bought into this narrative, and I'm glad I did. And it was very beautiful back then. So it wasn't that long ago, but still the landscape, and especially the legal and regulatory landscape, has changed a lot since then. And there weren't many mainstream users like the way we see today. There wasn't DeFi the way we see today. There was way more privacy on Bitcoin or on generally crypto than what we see today. Like analytics tool developed way much after. There were more usages, there are more instances where it becomes relevant to use analytics tool. There's more data to be used as well. And naturally, after this, we saw all the privacy tags being built, especially on Ethereum. And this is my gateway into the topic of briefly Tornado Cash. And I'm still going to look at my own slides for myself. Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. So, yes, crypto was somehow private and wasn't anymore. And then we had Tornado Cash. And I'm not sure about you all here, but I would like to assume that, at least back then, we're all very enthusiastic about this tool, that we may have used this tool, may have praised its usage, may have seen it fix an actual problem that Ethereum was causing. And I have this great meme I would like to share with you that I made. But I'm like, so I've been asked to come here to talk about law, and oh, thank you. So you're gonna see me go through all of it. It's not legal advice. What is the law? What is being a lawyer? Blah, blah. This is me somewhere. It's my origin story. That's my face when I found out. Bitcoin. Yes. So I'm like, I'm supposed to give you legal advice about crypto privacy tech, but like, what can I say even, right? Like, we love this, we love Tornado Cash. I have not heard any lawyers prior to sanctions who would have even imagined this being possible. So like, any advice I would give you now to avoid any form of legal risk will either not satisfy you and will definitely not satisfy me. So I'd rather not even talk about this. Oh, it's here. But I want to just make this statement before we move on to the banks in Switzerland, that because of many reasons that we're going to discuss before, that I mentioned briefly before, after, and mentioned briefly before, I stand by the side of the Tornado Cash developers, and as long as their cases are pending, I will never stand before you and tell you that Tornado Cash is not a good tool. So I want to make that clear. I don't think they have done anything illegal or worthy of being prosecuted the way they are being persecuted right now. And I think that all they have done was just to innovate in somehow regulatory unknown waters. And this does not deserve this form of reactionary proceedings. I also think, and this is maybe more controversial, and I'm happy to discuss it later with you, if they are responsible, I think we are all as well, should we have been users or anyone who praised Tornado Cash. And why is that the case? Because of the network effect and what it requires to actually obfuscate and provide the whatever services Tornado Cash was giving to its users. But because the users are not gonna suffer any consequences, I don't think these developers should. And now I'm gonna ask you, who else is often prosecuted for money laundering or tax evasion, where their users are not impacted? And I gave it away before, yeah, banks, the banking sector. And there's this thing in Switzerland called banking secrecy. And yesterday, actually someone told me that banking secrecy in the US means something entirely different than what it means in Switzerland. So like the Banking Secrecy Act in the US is basically like a KYC act, like where like banks have to give away their secrecy, while banking secrecy in Switzerland fundamentally means something different, means that banks, as much as your lawyer, your priest, your doctor, must keep your information confidential. So this was historical. It's not necessarily the case as much as it was before, but this was a very big part of Swiss culture and the Swiss marketplace. And I'll close my laptop, sorry, being distracted. And next, yes, the banker, the priest, the lawyer, no, not the lawyer, the doctor. And yeah, so you could go and open a numbered account with a Swiss bank, so no name attached to it. They would like not send you any mails at home. No one would know this account even exists and to whom it belongs. So because Switzerland is such a neutral place, it's very safe for foreign capital to come and remain there. And I think that this is the closest we ever had within like big amount of fiat to self-custody. So the same way we can have our ledger, back then, like there was a way to have your money somewhere. You have to trust just the bank to keep it for you. But the trust there was pretty high. And this is it. It was censorship resistant. Like no government could go and, thank you, Elena. And yeah, so the closer you can get to self-custody. And for me, this is very, like, when I realized this, I was like, I understood that that actually why Switzerland is so pro-privacy. It's like so deeply embedded in the culture. And it's not necessarily, so there was a huge attack against it, and we're gonna get to it in the next slide. But nonetheless, it remained as a core thing that they had to compromise based on pressure. And because of this, I think Switzerland can still be seen as an ally who understands the fundamental value of privacy. So the main criticism against bank secrecy obviously are tax evasion. So mainly like foreign jurisdiction, the US is top there, France after, were mad that their nationals or tax residents were obfuscating funds by hiding them in Swiss banks. And that Swiss bankers were somehow liking this side of the business. And the other part is money laundering. So you also have then funds that are from bad actors, ill-gotten money, dictators' money, and so on, transiting. This is the other side of the coin of privacy, always. And tax is how they get you. I always tell that to my clients. So like the tax evasion, Like you have to pay your taxes to be left alone. It's a very important thing to have in mind. Something we don't really see with DAOs, like Tornado Cash. Was it a taxpayer, the DAO? Well, maybe, if you pay someone, then you get something in return. That's up in the air, but I love this. So like it's tax season in the US. I think the deadline is tomorrow or something. Yes, you have to report your illegal activity money and your stolen property. Do not forget. And that's actually made to get you. So if they cannot imprison you because of whatever reason or not long enough for whatever illegal you've done, they will be like, but you did tax evasion. And like this is, I think it's called the Al Capone rule or something, but yeah. And the US has gone really hard against Swiss banking sector to try to basically get the information it needs, get the name of the clients, the money in the accounts. It has done so by arresting Swiss bankers who are traveling to the US either to get business or on vacation. So a lot of Swiss bankers actually ended up being prosecuted in the US, even like serving time. And banks were fined a lot of money. So I did the summary here. I think in total 7.5 billion. And there were some deals, like they went through all the banks. I think this is the only place in the world, beside the US, where you have to open a bank account. They make you sign few forms where you guarantee you're not a US person. So like, I have nothing in the US, no attachment, no US phone number, like nothing. Because of, obviously, these type of fines. And since 2017, that's kind of the death of banking secrecy. There was the automatic exchange of information that came into effect. So now they will send, with countries with which they have this agreement, so Switzerland, US, they will spontaneously each year send details about their US tax residents, users, account holders to the US IRS. So no more self-custody as before. And that was not long ago, a few years ago. So this is still all very, very new and like very fresh also in the hearts of Swiss bankers. And I'm wondering, with Swiss banking and with crypto privacy tech, did it become legal and compliance tech? Like, did we lose objective privacy and have to now somehow do it selectively? And I don't think that the parallel is that straightforward. And I started also by hinting towards this, that like we cannot do the same thing to Tornado Cash or any similar privacy enhancing tool on the blockchain, that like the same approach cannot be adopted that it has been with the Swiss banks, because the whole system is different. The banking sector doesn't depend on network effect, right? It's a business decision. They get like premiums, right? Like I'm sure dictators have to pay more to open their account than normal user. Like there's a price for the risk, and they make that decision to take it. While here we're talking about tools that are open to everyone, that are not selectively choosing the risk, which doesn't mean that this cannot be something to innovate for or create, right? But when we're talking about the law and complying, we have to know with what we are complying. And is this like the law of the US, no matter where you are? Like, is this legitimate to you? Do you want to do this? Are you like gonna suffer from any risk if you do or you do not? I think we need to highlight the fundamental difference in the tech and stand by them as well. So like we can compromise and do KYC and saying my time is up. Well, yes, we should. It's actually my last slide, kind of ish. Yeah, so more dialogue, I think, between the tech and the regulators are necessary, but I still think that we should think outside the box. And that may sound kind of banal, but there are things we can do and ways we can think and parallels we can draw and allies that we can find that do not necessarily require us to compromise on the level that we've been told we have to, right? Because, you know, there are multiple opinions in the world and the world is way bigger. than our little echo chamber. And I just listed a bunch of questions here that for me are very valid questions. Like, I remember still the days, it wasn't long ago, where we're like, is code law? And is it a bug or a feature, right? The exploit, like, should we like, you know, not be mad at the hacker? Like, should we be mad at somebody else? Whom? And then all of a sudden, all of these questions vanished, and like we haven't really resolved them. But then we realized that like reality caught up with us. But I still think that there is something to be found in the more fundamental question. And also like realizing who decides what we are allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do, and why these people decide so and so. So like something to look into is like, why are we having KYC as the only solution? And is it actually a solution? And how can we question whether it is or it is not a solution? And who decides even that? And once you like start looking and like removing the layers of the onion, you realize, oh, like there isn't much holding it. You know, there is like an organization called the Financial Action Task Force. Like, who made it? You know, like how legitimate and democratic is it? Well, like these are open questions. There are academics actually writing about it. It's not just like fringe, you know, like criticism, but it's just points like when you realize like, you know, the base of the pyramid is not that strong, and there are things we can do. I think we should fight money laundering, right? We should like fight against criminality. We should not be wanting to associate with criminals. Like this for me are all very natural. We don't need to spend much time on it. But I think we should figure out by ourselves how to do that best, and everyone would be better off, even the society at large. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Really nice, and also thank you very much for coming today. Really, really appreciate it. So if we can switch to the Slido, let's see if there are any questions. We have definitely a time for a few questions. I don't even know where to start. Switzerland is the original Tornado Cash. Is that even a question? Like,
I love it.
Can someone take a photo of this, please, and tweet it? Yesterday we had that ETFs are the new Bitcoin L2s, by the way. Yeah, would you like to take the next question?
Would a KYC mixer protocol be able to get a license? So I guess it depends, right? Like everything, I would say we'll start with that. I think it's a really good step forward to get the license for sure. And I think there are even like banks kind of doing that amongst themselves or thinking of projects like this, right? Because like if like you have only mixers between entities that have KYC'd all of their users, then you're kind of rich. And I think the mixer question is more related to everything that surrounds it than just the act of mixing. So like you have, you know, different models, like you have privacy pools that raises its own questions, solves a bunch of other questions. You have full KYC. There's a whole array of things that you can do, but definitely if you want to go down the licensing route, I think this could be appealing to the regulator.
Again, we're doing amazing with the questions right now. Taxation is theft. Do we want to comment on that? I don't know.
No.
No. Okay, moving on.
We can leave
Defiance
it.
or engagement?
Defiance or engagement? I would say both. Yeah, because like one without the other is kind of, you know, you just go halfway. Like, I ideally would DeFi all together, but then I'm criticized for being like too radical, so engagement.
I think one of the really fun things about the conference that I've been learning about is how privacy in from a technical layer where you don't have a choice, so in a way you're being defiant, but you can also have smart release of information, smart privacy. So it's what you said both, I just want to very much like that. Do you want to speed through these ones, and then that's it?
Yeah. How might we reach consensus on the more fundamental issues you've mentioned? This is the question of the meta-governance. So how can we set up a governance to decide on the governance? Well, I think it's an open question, and no one has really the answer. I would say through culture and just discussion. So the more we talk about this topic, the more we publish, read, think, the more we share, then it kind of somehow is created. Whatever, so if there are hackers in the room, like whatever design decision you make within your projects, then this will become a standard in some way, right? It will fit within a whole ecosystem and move the needle. So every single of your decisions actually do matter on that front. Thoughts on private selective disclosure, KYC. I kind of don't like KYC, if you didn't realize. It's just, it's wrong, you know? It's like, it's good, like we want to keep some people away, but we don't want to keep the normal people away. Like this, I will always say that, like, an Iranian shouldn't be outside of the whole financial sector, shouldn't not have access to wealth management, to like jobs, to like a UI, like just because, you know, like there's added tax, I call it, the added cost of being born somewhere. And I don't think this is really fair.
Cool. And we'll take the...
Get your tax lawyer.
Yeah.
Wait, there was a good one. Would be a great way to prevent money laundering in DeFi. I don't know about this, but I would say one thing, that no matter how permission DeFi, at least on Ethereum, becomes, there are other chains and other ways of doing. So I know, like already, like when I speak with friends who are using it to just like, you know, fight against hyperinflation in their country and so on, they don't usually use Ethereum, and they love USDT.
That's all we've got time for, unfortunately.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love this part. Thank you.